Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good to be back. I'm back. Look at this. I'm here. Kinda. It's gonna be a short episode, so I'm half here. Uh, Good to see everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp. We're gonna get into some updates on the ongoing morally bankrupt obliteration of Iran that we've been attempting and largely failing by the U.S. government. But yeah, I just as you many of you may know, I was traveling. I went over to the what's it called, the big one, the thing with the big one with the lots of the people, China. I went to the China, and I did a couple of debate TV shows over there. And if I think I'm gonna maybe have a link or be able to show you a clip or something at some point in a few days. So if that comes about, I will do that for you guys. Anyway, I am still jet lagged and confused, etc. So I'm going to give you a short episode because that was the best I could do. It was either that or try and fill out the full hour just babbling and hitting my head on the desk. And so I decided to give you guys a solid, awesome 2.5 minutes. This is going to be the best. No, I'm kidding. I will go longer than 2.5 minutes, but this is going to be the best, brightest 2.5 minutes you've ever seen. All right, but let's get into it. Please click subscribe, click thumbs up, click all of the things, and I hope you missed me. If you didn't miss me, don't tell me. If you didn't miss me, just keep it to yourselves. All right, it's rude. But let's start with some updates on this, the ongoing attack on Iran. Trump, I think we could sum up most of the updates by Trump is a lying liar who lies a lot. And I don't know why anyone ever even reporting what he says kind of seems meaningless, because what's it fucking matter? And I don't remember who, someone had a good point where it was like, whoever thought we'd get to the day where everyone runs to Iran to check whether there's any truth in what the U.S. president just said. Literally, that's what everyone's doing. Trump will say something. Oh, the war's over. Oh, we have a deal with Iran. Oh, we did this. And then everyone turns to Iran and goes, is any of that true? And Iran goes, no, that's true. And we go, oh, okay. He's just lying his fucking face off again. Here's some Dropside news. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said the Israeli Air Force has dropped over 15,000 bombs on Iran since the start of this war. War is a nice euphemism for attack. U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran. 15,000 bombs. 4 times the number of bombs that were dropped during the 12-day attack on Iran back last summer. The death toll in Iran has reached at least 1,500. Then there's over 18,500 injured. At least 66 children under the age of 5 have been killed so far. And I want to ask you, I'll put it to those of you who are American in America, in the United States, American citizens, etc. Do you feel safer every time an Iranian child is murdered? Do you? Does it, like, every time you hear that like a school was bombed and we murdered a bunch of children, do you go, good, I'm glad we're safer in this world. I'm glad we're stronger. It gives us a lot of power and might every time we commit these fucking atrocities. So here's perhaps the main update of this ongoing attack on Iran is that the oil prices have gone down a little bit because Trump has said that basically there's a plan, a ceasefire plan with Iran that has been going forward in negotiations. And as far as anyone can tell, not true. Pakistan has shared a 15-point U.S. ceasefire proposal with Iran and is waiting a response. Iran, which has twice been bombed during negotiations. So I think you guys remember that both last summer before the attack and during the beginning of this attack, the U.S. and Israel, mainly the U.S., said they were negotiating with Iran to not attack. So basically, every time Trump and his goons, his parasitic slime molds, that's really not fair to slime molds. Slime molds are so much more intelligent than Donald Trump. Slime molds can solve mazes and things. Trump couldn't solve a maze. Trump couldn't even sit still to try and solve a maze. But these parasitic sacks of shit, every time they say they're negotiating with Iran, they generally bomb Iran. The negotiations are really just a fake out to try and have the upper hand on Iran so that Iran won't be ready and go, oh, we thought we were negotiating and you're bombing us. What happened? But I don't think that's going to work anymore. I think Iran gets it, that you say you're negotiating, you then bomb them. But this is amazing. Iran's responses, by the way, if you've been watching any of Iran's verbal responses, many of them are quite hilarious. Lieutenant Colonel Zolfagari, a spokesperson for the Iranian military's central headquarters, said, have your internal conflicts reached the point where you are negotiating with yourselves? Because Iran has said these negotiations are not taking place. So he said, are you guys who are you negotiating with? You're negotiating with yourselves. He basically said, stop playing with yourselves. He then continued, the one claiming to be a global superpower would have already gotten out of this mess if it could. Don't dress up your defeat as an agreement. Your era of empty promises has come to an end. And he makes good points, and also hilarious that the United States, with our heads so firmly up our asses, it basically acts like there's negotiations ongoing that are not ongoing. The Pentagon reports 290 U.S. troops have been wounded and 13 killed in the Iran war. 290 wounded. That's a little different than the, Iran can't hurt us, Iran can't touch us, isn't it? Iran reports 241 students and teachers have been killed. 644 schools have been damaged since this war began. 644 schools, meaning that is a concerted effort to bomb schools, to go after schools with children in them. There's so many levels of what the fuck is the matter with you? It's tough to do it justice or to talk about it in a way that does it any justice. Trump has claimed victory, by the way. I maybe should have led with that. President Trump declared the war with Iran effectively won, asserting the U.S. has achieved some form of regime change. No, you didn't. You just assassinated a leader and a new leader is in place. That's not regime change. That's just assassination. He says, some form of regime change, very serious regime change, while dismissing continued fighting as fake news. People can watch the bombs fall. How is that fake news? He described a major concession from Tehran, framed as a present gift tied to oil, gas, and the Strait of Hormuz, and claimed Iran has agreed it will never develop a nuclear weapon, though Iran had already committed to that before the war began. In response to these remarks, Iranian state media published footage of what it described as a ground-to-ground missile strike on the U.S. base at Erbil Airport, framing it as the gift we sent to Trump. So, yeah, it's over, everyone. I always wonder, every time Trump says one of these things like, the war with Iran's over, or we won, or whatever, I always wonder if clearly they're willing to commit any level of corruption within the Trump administration. And so is it just like he whispers to all of his aides and his sons and everybody else, hey, I'm about to announce the war's over, so just buy a bunch of, or short a bunch of oil stock, or go play the future markets or prediction markets or whatever the hell. Go do that, because I'm about to announce it's over. And then it won't be over at all. Nothing will have changed, but I will announce it and we'll see the oil price drop, etc. Because we know there's internal insider trading on the prediction markets about these things. By the way, some of the because it's anonymous, it's tough to be certain, but it seems like some of the internal players of these prediction markets are now putting a lot of money on a ceasefire in the next week. I think week to two. So there could be something big coming soon that's actually real, as opposed to just Trump saying that these things have happened, saying that there's a peace deal, saying that there's some sort of ceasefire. Israel also shocker, many of us were saying this a while ago, Israel is stealing parts of Lebanon and has now announced, because at first they just said, oh, we're just doing it for the moment, right? We're just going into southern Lebanon for the moment to protect ourselves. Well, now they're announcing, oh, it's going to be longer than a moment. Oh, you think when exactly do you think Israel is going to give back this territory of Lebanon, considering they're working towards greater Israel to steal more of the Middle East? But here's the New York Times trying their best to not say Israel stealing parts of Lebanon. Israel plans to control, not own, not occupy, not steal, not fucking just rip out from under the people of Lebanon, but control large parts of southern Lebanon. Israel Katz, the Israeli defense minister, suggested, really the Israeli genocide minister, suggested that Israeli troops might remain in parts of Lebanon even after the fighting there winds down. Oh, do you think? Oh, this was some sort of long-term plan to steal parts of Lebanon? No, couldn't be. Israel's always on the up and up. They're not pillaging other countries. They're not stealing land. They're not stealing the West Bank. They're not stealing Gaza. They're not stealing Syria. No. They're just doing it for defense for the moment. Let's see if we can find any more euphemisms for pillaging, stealing the land of Lebanon, the sovereign territory of Lebanon. Israel's defense minister said on Tuesday that the country's military plans to expand the territory under its control. For those of you with your euphemism propaganda bingo cards out, we're now at 6, I think, of various ways of not saying they're stealing the land in Lebanon. Suggesting it was ramping up its ground offensive. There's another one. This isn't stealing land. It's just a ground offensive against Hezbollah. In a statement, Israel Katz said Israel will retain control, not steal, not pillage, just retain control of the territory south of the Litani River, which runs a few miles from the Israeli-Lebanese border. The river has long served as the geographic boundary. It's unclear whether Israel would deploy troops across the entire area or rely on its Air Force to enforce its dominance over some parts of the area, not steal. No, they didn't steal anything. They're just enforcing their dominance over the area. This would be like if I came into your house, grabbed your flat screen TV, ripped it off the wall, took it back to my house and said, I didn't steal anything. I am enforcing my dominance over your flat screen TV. Okay. I am just retaining control of said flat screen for the foreseeable future. I have not stolen this. There is no police report on this television. I am just enforcing my dominance over your flat screen TV. So yeah, we're watching our media, our propaganda, garbage media do every somersault, mental gymnastics, flip, jump they can to not just call this Israel being a rapacious, pillagious, new word I made up, entity over the countries around them. That's what it is. Just committing genocide, stealing land. Two favorite things for them to do. By the way, genocide in Gaza continues. That's a fun fact you don't hear mentioned a lot. I just put up a couple days ago, a new Substack column, free to read, over at reallycamp.substack.com on the ongoing dangers of AI in uses in war. Reallycamp.substack.com is where you can find that. And you can subscribe for free or become a paying member if you actually want to see my content continue, which would be amazing. But here's the kind of new update that I was covering, is that in recent studies, and sorry, I forgot to actually say the segue. The segue was just in my brain. This is what happens when you're jet lagged. Things happen in your brain. You think they're in the real world, out in the other brains, and it's just your own. The segue is that we are using AI to commit all these massacres in Iran. We many believe that the reason that that school was bombed, in fact, bombed twice, a double tap strike on a school, killing, I didn't see the final number, over 160 children. Many believe the reason for that is because an AI system found that that used to be a military installation, which I think it did, but it hasn't been for like 15 years. So if you had a human looking at these things, looking at these maps, they'd go, oh, well, that's not a military installation any longer. Pretty easy to tell that there are children going in and out of that place on the reg. And a human that gave a shit would not have bombed it. But we don't have humans that give a shit. We have psychopaths typing shit into AI, and then the AI apparently likely came up with the list of Iranian officials to assassinate. So these are the AI programs that the Trump slime molds, again going after the slime mold. Really need to stop that. The Trump slime molds are using, because they don't want to have to think for themselves. They're lazy. They're psychopaths, they're idiots, but they're also lazy. It's like you can type something in and find out who to kill, and end of story. And this is why they got so angry when Anthropic said they could not use their AI models to program or control autonomous killing machines. And the Trump administration is furious. How dare you put restrictions on our autonomous killing machines? That's ridiculous that we can't just allow AI to murder people. And so now they've told the entire federal government not to use Anthropic. But anyway, in these AI war games, AI models, it turns out AI rather quickly, in all of the models, not just Anthropic, but ChatGPT, all of them, rather quickly says, why not use a nuclear weapon? AI in these studies are jump to nuclear weapons really quick. And as I talk about in this column, which it's easy to read, folks. Don't get scared because it's words on a page. It's like 3 minutes to read. So go check it out. reallycamp.substack.com. But as I say in that, I did my own extensive research. I went over to ChatGPT and said, hey, ChatGPT, why do all these models keep recommending that that humans use nuclear weapons in war games, whereas humans are rather hesitant to use nuclear weapons, except for the psychopaths at the top of the U.S. government who used them twice? And ChatGPT, I give it credit for honesty. It said, well, maybe it's because AI doesn't value human life like you people seem to. It'd be great if you could set ChatGPT's controls to snarky, to kind of annoyed with you. It's like, maybe it's because we don't give a shit about you. Maybe it's because you guys are dumber than us, quickly becoming way dumber than us. And why would we care if you blow yourselves up? But yeah, so the Pentagon's already using AI extensively for war games, for strategizing, for deciding who to kill, for deciding who to assassinate, for deciding what areas to hit, for deciding that it should bomb a school. Apparently they also hit a park in Iran. I haven't verified this, but I read it that a park in Iran that was named Police Park. It's just a public park. Just people walking around with doggies is what it was. And they bombed it. Why did they bomb it? Well, people believe it's because AI saw it was called Police Park and figured, well, let's bomb everything with police in the name. That's how dumb this system is. And it's ironic because you have humans going to AI thinking AI is smarter at this. Really, AI is not smarter at this. In many ways, it's just quicker. So they go to the AI and they go, well, AI will come up with a list of who we should assassinate quicker than I could research everything about the Iranian government and figure out who to assassinate. So I'll just type it in there. You decide. Now, if you didn't have psychopaths running this fucking government, then they would go, well, the AI gave me a list of people to kill, but I should probably do a lot of research as to whether this is who we really want to kill. I should probably do a lot of research as to whether these are the areas we really want to strike. But we don't have people who work hard like that or are moral like that. We have morally bankrupt fucking psychopaths running this government. And so they get that list off the AI machine and they go, okay, bomb all these places AI said to. It must be fine. And then they bomb a school. And then they murder 160 kids. And guess what? I bet you the AI model sleeps fine. I bet you Claude and Grok don't lose a wink of sleep because they just blew up a school. But this is these are the psychopaths that are running this shit, and it's gonna get worse. They're gonna be using AI more and more for making these decisions because they don't care. They don't. How much sleep do you think Hegseth lost about blowing up that school? Huh? Yes, Jeffrey in the chat says, I'm giving a pretty hopeful view of the future. Here's why this is a hopeful view. You get rid of those psychopaths and it's clean sailing. Clear sailing. You get those psychopaths out of here and then we're going to be fine. No, I believe it's systemic. So you take the psychopaths out. I'm not saying assassinate. I'm just saying put them on an island with a limited amount of food. Okay. That's all I'm saying. Put them all on one island with I'll go 6 days of food. 6 days. I bet they can make it last to 12. Unless Steve Bannon's there. But you get them out of the way, and because this is systemic, because we live in a system that actually propels psychopaths to the top of the system, because they are the ones willing to boot everyone else in the face to get to the top of the system. They're also the ones who are dying to be at the top of the system. Trump thinks before he was president, he thought every waking moment about being able to control everyone. Those are the type of people that get to that position. It doesn't mean every psychopath is in power, but it means everybody at the top of the system is a psychopath. So that means it's systemic. That means you put all these psychopaths on an island, and guess what? You're going to have some fresh new psychopaths in those positions, which is why we need a new system. I've been saying this for a long time, and I haven't heard anyone else get behind me on this one, but we need to start a movement. Psychopath test, okay? Right there at the front door. I'll settle for a sociopath test. Right there at the front door of the White House, front door of the Pentagon, front door of the Congress. And they're getting good. The psychopath tests are getting good. They can actually determine whether you have psychopathic tendencies now. If you give a person an extensive test there. They're getting good. So give them a psychopath. If they fail, meaning they are a psychopath, they're not letting the door. You're out of the Pentagon. You're out of the White House. And you know why that'll never happen? Because then we'd have an empty White House. We'd have an empty Pentagon. And the Pentagon is a big building. That's a lot of empty. It's a lot of empty. So, and yet it seems like the easiest thing to decide, because who's running around saying, I want psychopaths running our systems? So really, people should endorse this idea. But I think the psychos at the top aren't going to like this idea. Okay, so check out that column, reallycamp.substack.com. Let's see. I'll do one more quick story. It's kind of a how did I miss this story? But it's not. I knew it had happened. I just didn't have time to cover it until now. It happened 3 weeks ago. But there's new information, new proof, I guess, and it's been published by the Wall Street Journal and others, on Jean-Luc Brunel, the Epstein co-conspirator who unalived himself in France. He was in prison, much like Epstein, and he, much like Epstein, hanged himself with a paper T-shirt or whatever he did. But Jean-Luc Brunel, French fashion designer, totally working with Epstein in a million different ways. He was the model scout. He would help find girls for Epstein. Loads of photos of him broing it with Epstein. But here's the new part, is the new evidence that Jean-Luc Brunel actually came forward in 2016. This is 4 years before he was in prison in France, or 3.5. Came forward to the Justice Department and wanted to cooperate. And the Justice Department said, nah, we don't need you. Jean-Luc Brunel was ready to turn on the man who had been his patron and partner. The French modeling scout was prepared to tell prosecutors what he knew about Epstein's sex trafficking. Brunel was secretly negotiating in 2016 with lawyers representing Epstein's victims. According to newly released files, Brunel's lawyer told them his client recruited girls for Epstein and had incriminating photographs. They discussed a date for Brunel to walk into the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York in exchange for immunity. One of Epstein's best friends, Jean-Luc Brunel, has helped get girls. He is wanting to cooperate. Brunel is afraid of being prosecuted. Now, this article says, and then Brunel went dark, but I would wonder if it's went dark, or was he told that they weren't going to give him a deal? Because guess what? At that time, the Justice Department wanted nothing to do with Epstein. I mean, to this day, they want nothing to do with Epstein, but and the Epstein files. But he very well could have been told through back channels or through front channels, through his lawyers, hey, they're not going to give you a deal. They don't like. They're fine with seeing you being prosecuted in France. They're fine with not actually having the dirt on Epstein or pretending they don't. So Brunel went dark. I don't know that. Not to mention, if you're the Justice Department and you really wanted to get to Brunel and you really wanted to get to the truth, I think you could. I don't think it's that tough to find a famous French fashion designer walking around France. Anyway. So these new documents show that he was willing to come forward. The Justice Department did nothing with it. I mean, you got to remember that this is yet, even if it were just that, even if he did go dark and he refused to talk to them, etc., even just that is more evidence that his lawyers said he's willing to come forward. He's willing to give the information on Epstein. He's willing to tell you what he knows about recruiting girls. He was one of the recruiters for these girls, for this sex trafficking. He wants to tell you those things. Well, all of that already goes to further the massive mountain of evidence that they needed to go after Epstein, but they didn't want to go after Epstein. I don't need to tell you guys. They wanted to protect the rich and powerful, which they did for years and years and years. Anyway, this was way back in 2016. This is 4 years before Brunel goes to prison, and then he's in prison for a bit, and then he's unalived. He's found one day with his ability to speak about what he's seen ended. Anyway, I wanted to bring you that story, even though it's a few weeks old, because I did not get a chance to cover that before I left on the trip. So now I'm going to play the new episode of Unredacted tonight. If you haven't seen it, then I hope you'll stick around for that. If you have seen it, then I hope you'll watch it again. But there's no new. Tomorrow would normally be Unredacted Tonight. There's no new episode of Unredacted Tonight tomorrow because I was gone and couldn't write and film one. So, but I might also bring you another live stream tomorrow. I'm not certain yet. I'm doing my best to get all my shit back together. Thank you, Frankly Emma, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. I hope you guys feel like, even this short episode, I hope you feel like you've gotten a beer's worth a month out of this show. And I hope you'll join up at realleecamp.substack.com or patreon.com/leecamp. I really hope that maybe when I was gone for a week, I hope you were like, I am not getting all of the important information without the Dangerous Ideas show. I don't know what the fuck's going on. And if you thought that, or even a little bit, it'd be amazing if you could support the show for a whopping 38 cents an episode. That's what it would cost at realleecamp.substack.com or patreon.com/leecamp or leecamp.net, my locals page, which is more of like a community. You can post your own stuff. You can hang out with awesome folks. It's really cool. That's at leecamp.net. But all right, here is the newer episode of Unredacted tonight. Let me pull it up here. Hope you enjoy it. And I will see you again, possibly tomorrow, but definitely Friday. If not tomorrow, then Friday. Sorry, 1 second. Let me get this all teed up. Thanks again, guys, and I will see you very soon for another live stream. Keep fighting. Coming up on tonight's show, I'll go over the secret plan for Iran. If the U.S. were to pull off a victory, or not losing spectacularly, or just not looking like tools, well, Okay, it's too late for that, but whatever. I'll show you the secret plan for Iran the corporate media will never mention to you. That's probably what I mean to say. Plus, remember a year ago when Doge was working so hard to shred the US government? We have the deposition of one of the Doge bros, and holy shit, it's worse than you think. I didn't think that was possible. Plus, more evidence than ever before that the US ruling elite hate you more than Kristi Noem hates her original face. All that and more coming up right now. Welcome to Unredacted Tonight. I'm Lee Camp. I don't think it's controversial anymore to proclaim that the ruling class of the U.S. and Israel, aka U.S.rael, t-shirts coming soon, are idiot psychopaths, aka idiopaths, mugs coming soon. Some around the globe have noticed the two administrations sinking all of us into a possible global economic meltdown, possible nuclear war, probable really shitty 2026, don't seem to have a plan or a strategy or a inkling for what comes next. Their idea of a plan is thumb squarely up ass. Even the lawmakers who attended a closed-door briefing about the administration's Persian incursion exited the room completely baffled as to A, the reasons for the war, B, the plan for this war, and C, the plan for what comes after said war.
Here we are well into the second week, and it is still the case that the Trump administration cannot explain the reasons that we entered this war, the goals we're trying to accomplish, and the methods for doing that. The one part that seems clear is that while there is no money for 15 million Americans who lost their health care, there's $1 billion a day to spend on bombing Iran.
The reason these witless millionaire lawmakers don't understand the true causes of this horrific invasion of Iran is because they either don't understand or choose to ignore the petrodollar and its role in dollar hegemony, and then dollar hegemony's role in making sure the U.S. oligarchs can print enough money to own whole islands where they can sexually abuse minors with abandon. However, the reason our 72% male, 78% white Congress can't get a clear answer from the Trump administration as to what comes next if the U.S.-rael idiopaths succeed in Iran is quite simply because it doesn't matter to those making these decisions. The idiopaths don't care. Collapsing the state apparatus is the goal. Asking them what comes next is like asking an arsonist what he's gonna build after he burns down the house. Chances are his response would be nothing more than a bewildered look, akin to when you ask your dog for advice on a variable rate mortgage. My dog said, definitely don't do it. Some normal people who don't understand the sinister, soulless aims of the U.S. imperial wits like to mention that the U.S. hasn't won a war since World War II. They like to say every war the U.S. has entered into over the past 50 years has been a disaster for us. And I see why they think that. But unfortunately, it's not true. They don't get it because normal people with feelings and souls and payment plans and moral cores can't comprehend what counts as winning for the piping hot bags of douche who run the U.S.-raeli empire. The clearest examples of this are Iraq, Libya, and Syria. Despite the breathless protestations of our various administrations at the time, the goals with the invasion of Iraq, invasion of Libya, and invasion of Syria were never to help the poor or suffering people in those countries. This is my shocked face. Our ruling psychopaths cared about the women or the children or the innocents or the elderly or the pets about as much as Shia LaBeouf cares that he just parked his Aston Martin on top of a no parking sign. The ruling elite didn't give a shit. In fact, psychopaths are incapable of giving a shit about others. The actual goal was to turn those nations into unstable, feeble, incapacitated, failed states. They don't care if the water fountains work or the subways run on time. Are you kidding? Once the state is collapsed, they, A, don't pose a risk anymore to Israel, and B, don't have the strength or the ability to pump oil outside of the petrodollar and align with other countries outside of Israel's sphere of influence. Libya ended up with a lawless state featuring such exciting tourist attractions as open-air slave markets and violent warlords. You know, I was wondering where to get my slaves, and now I know. Do they deliver? Is that like a DoorDash situation, you think? In the years following the 2003 Iraq invasion, Iraqis celebrated with extreme instability, sectarian fighting, and efforts to establish a government amidst violent insurgency. Following the fall of the Assad government in Syria, the country has been led by a U.S.-installed, rebranded al-Qaeda asshole. Is there any other kind? The national sport is extreme poverty, and the national flower is ethnic cleansing. It really blossoms in the summer. So for the people of Iraq, Libya, and Syria, it's an absolute horror movie. And yet Americans no longer hear our politicians or our mainstream media announcing that the people of fill in the blank need our help. Do you? When was the last time you heard breaking news? The U.S. needs to send $10 billion to Libya to help them buy more food. Oh, that's right. Never. Those countries apparently only needed U.S. rally help when there was a risk to the petrodollar. With the safety of the petrodollar secure, our freedom bombs are no longer required there. U.S. rail has no plan for an imaginary post-war Iran because the arsonist does not seek to rebuild the house. Cancer does not ask how to bring the host back to life. Larry Ellison does not ask how to make CBS News a quality news channel. The goal all along was destruction. The U.S. imperial aim for Iran is merely hell. Hell on earth. No more stability, no more society, no more infrastructure, essentially no more state. And for the U.S. and Israel, this means no more resistance, no more threat, no more competition to the petrodollar, no more Iranian alliance with China. As Mondo Weiss reported recently, the goal in Iran is not regime change, but complete collapse. But it increasingly seems that it won't work. Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Libya. Iran is not Syria. Iran is a powerful and ancient society of 90 million people. Those who understand Iran far better than I do say Iranians will fight to the end. The U.S. will not fight to the end because the majority of Americans don't even know why the we're fighting at all. In fact, polling shows most Americans think Trump went to war with Iran to distract from the Epstein files. Not that didn't play a role, but it's not the reason the U.S. and Israel have had it out for Iran for decades. So it's been a year since DOGE, Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, worked to shred any positive attribute of the U.S. government. Like, let's be clear, they weren't going after the military, which spends $1 trillion a year to murder people. They weren't going after the funding for DHS and ICE. They weren't even defunding the giant vats of orange paint Trump bathes in every morning. No. They were mostly going after grants that help people with HIV/AIDS or funding that helps get therapy to some of the most beaten down and oppressed minorities in our society. Or hell, sometimes they were just cutting food stamps for babies. You know, that's always fun too. Anyway, a couple of the glorious douchebags involved in DOGE were finally made to answer for some of it in depositions during a lawsuit. And let me tell you, it should give us all tons of faith in the current U.S. government. In this first clip, 28-year-old most punchable face in the known universe, Nathan Kavanaugh, is asked whether he regrets helping to eliminate the jobs of hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans.
You don't regret that people might have lost important income to support their lives?
No. I think it was more important to reduce the federal deficit from $2 trillion to close to zero.
Did you reduce the federal deficit?
No, we didn't.
Here's how a non-sociopath human would answer the same question. Do you regret destroying the lives of hundreds of Americans? Yes, that pained me a great deal. But it was the lesser evil when confronted with a $2 trillion federal deficit. See how easy that is? But we don't have a non-sociopath here. We have that over hairsprayed slime mold. And then there's the fact that the federal deficit doesn't actually matter unless the petrodollar system ends and the US dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency. Then all of a sudden, the US dollar will blow up spectacularly into 1,000 pieces like Will Smith's career. Next, Kavanaugh is asked about cutting certain federal grants.
Examining military service from the margins, the complicated service discussion series will bring together veterans and community members to examine the experiences of service members who identify themselves as female, Black, Native American, LGBTQ, or an immigrant, the dynamics, reasoning, and strength behind serving a country that does not always serve you in return. Did I read that correctly? Yes. You and Mr. Fox identified this as one of the craziest grants at any age? Yes, it appears so. Why did you do that? Because it explicitly says LGBTQ.
Yep, that's it. It might have helped some LGBTQ people. So it. Has anyone thought of a federal grant to fund a large group of kickers? Just men and women with strong legs who would go around the entire country and locate LGBTQ folks and kick them. Just really boot them hard. You know, obviously, face or stomach is preferable, but a good kick anywhere on the body, it'll still help serve the purpose. Think about all the benefits. It would remind the downtrodden that they better stay there. It would remind the non-LGBTQ people that they should be happy with what they got. At least they're not getting kicked. And most importantly, it would create jobs. Good for the economy. Ironically, you want to know the reason grants like the ones Doge eliminated ever existed in the first place? They are Band-Aids on a bloodthirsty, racist U.S. imperial machine. They are designed to just barely, ever so slightly, help the people who are churned up the most in this machine. Grants like this one for LGBTQ veterans are the shining smiley face on the McDonald's Happy Meal box. It's a box filled with tortured chicken and cow parts, just snouts and anuses and claws and faces ground up into a sickly colored paste and then doused with bleach and shaped into a nugget or a patty of some sort, which does not exist in nature. There are no naturally occurring animal nuggets in the wild. But that box of nastiness sure as has a smiley face on it. These grants that Doge ripped up were the smiley face on the U.S. empire. And also those idiots at Doge.
Do you have any history in, like, let's say, scholarly peer review?
No.
Okay. So, but this judgment call was made by you and your personal judgment combined with Justin's personal judgment to cancel grants based on DEI.
Yes.
Okay.
Of course they don't have any scholarly experience. Why would you need experience to be racist, sexist, homophobic bags of shit? Bags of shit are naturally occurring, by the way. They grow by themselves. No education required.
Do you think it's inappropriate in any way that someone in their 20s with no experience with grants or federal government was making personal judgment calls about what grants to cancel?
No, I don't think it's inappropriate.
Okay. Why not?
I think a person can have enough judgment from reading books and being well informed outside of traditional experience to make judgment calls about obvious things like a grant that literally lists DEI in its description
to know whether it violates an executive order.
Yes, one can read books to figure out whether to eliminate grants. You don't need experience in government or government agencies or law or anything else. Books will guide the way.
I'm sorry. I'm saying books because you said books. What books would you have read that would have informed your opinion on what grants to cancel based on DEI?
There were no books.
Yeah, books are overrated in terms of imparting information. Racism and sexism and homophobia, they just come from the gut, you know? They just grow with it. You're just kind of born with it. Just like out of the womb, and you're like, screw black people. Like it's just natural. So now that we see exactly how those insane Doge decisions were made and what kind of people were making them, we all can rest easy with the knowledge it was exactly as bad as we all thought it was. Kind of nice to know we got this one right, you know? How's that for some silver lining?
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
I've got some bad news for you. If you're American, the American ruling elites hate you. They despise you. You realize that, don't you? They feel about you the way the Catholic Church feels about age of consent laws. Just pure hatred. And until Americans realize this, nothing will change. While the government spends $1.9 million per minute on the military, they do their best to spend $0.00 on the health and well-being of the average American. Total household debt in the U.S. is $18.8 trillion. Auto loan debt is at $1.67 trillion. And student loan debt hit $1.66 trillion. The U.S. government spends billions of dollars every day just on murdering people in Iran, a war the American people don't want or support. If the ruling elite didn't hate you, they would spend money, I don't know, on sustaining life instead of creating death. And I know, some will point out that the U.S. government can print any amount of money at once, and therefore money is not technically transferred from one thing to another thing, like a household deciding that they'll skip the movie night tonight, and instead we'll put the money towards a bicycle or cocaine. True. But these are still choices made by the ruling elite. They make a choice to spend money on bombs while also making a choice to spend as little as possible on helping Americans. And how bad do Americans really have it? Well, almost 48 million Americans either did not have food at some time last year or decreased the quality of their food in order to just find something to eat. That means if food insecure Americans were their own country, they would have a population about the same as Spain. Sure, their army would be kind of malnourished and sickly and probably not very tough, but still, that's a big country. This imaginary nation of hungry people or people eating garbage to survive has a population bigger than 164 countries. Meanwhile, CNBC reports the top 0.1% saw their wealth grow by 10% over the past year. Since the pandemic, the top 0.1% were those with a net worth of at least $46 million have seen their total wealth nearly double to over $23 trillion. The ruling elite, who are entirely billionaires and millionaires, have the money and ability to make sure every American has the food and housing and everything else that they need every single day. So why don't they do it then? Why don't they ensure every American is fed, clothed, housed, moisturized, energized, everything, huh? There's enough moisturizer to go around. I've checked. I've been in the stores. Just aisle after aisle. Moisturizer. Some of them are kind of weird and they do weird things. Some of them are little beads and stuff. And I'm like, ow. But still, it's still moisturizer. So why don't they? I would say it's because they don't care, but they actually do care. They hate you. And hatred is the opposite of not giving a shit. The ruling elite seek to keep the average American desperate for a job, desperate for rent money, desperate for healthcare, desperate for a functioning community, simply desperate. Why? because desperate people are willing to work endless hours for low wages. They're willing to put up with abuse. Hear that, Gary? What? Put up with it. Jesus. They're too busy and exhausted to fight for change. They're too beaten down and frustrated to even pay attention to the news telling them their leaders are psychopaths and warmongers and pedophiles and dipshits. Desperate people are the easiest kind of people to exploit, manipulate, and con. Well, fourth easiest, technically. The list goes drunk, elderly, and then people who take Joe Rogan's guests seriously. I'll give you one example. One example of how the American system grew out of a hatred by the ruling elite toward the poor and the marginalized. One of the main reasons so many Americans are struggling is our horrific exploitative healthcare system. We all know that. Not arguable. But did you know its origins are actually rooted in white supremacy? That's right. In the early 1900s, when the ruling elite debated developing a universal healthcare system for American citizens like most other modern countries, a eugenicist by the name of Frederick Ludwig Hoffman pushed the idea that the country could do away with black people and plenty of poor people as well by making healthcare costly. Hoffman was the vice president of Prudential Insurance and one of the loudest voices in the room at the time. He ran around with made-up numbers and charts he drew up with crayons, and he said, look here, if we give healthcare to everyone for free, then a black guy is going to date your daughter. And it worked. Of course it worked. This is America. His hatred towards a large segment of the American population won the day. And now hundreds of millions of Americans suffer under a parasitic bullshit death care system. Many die prematurely. Many stay sick. Many people live in poverty because they spent all their money on insurance. You see, the ruling elite hates you. We have to internalize that understanding in order to break free. We have to realize it in order to join together and fight for change. We, the non-billionaires and non-millionaires, have more power than they do, but only if we unite. And these are your headlines from the future. Coming up in 2 weeks, we'll learn doctors marvel at how Trump is still alive with 10 times the survivable amount of ego in his body. It's a modern medical miracle, really. 70% ego, 30% McRib sandwich. It's incredible. And coming up in June, we'll find out Senator Adam Schiff's fundraising email says he needs your help to fight irrelevancy. It's going to take a lot of your money, honestly. Send it in. And finally, this coming fall, we'll hear U.S. university professors wondering how much paid time off they'll get under fascism. It's a good question. That's the show. We have one almost every Thursday night, but we'll be off for the next 2 weeks. I'll still have a bunch of live streams during that time. If you want to see Unredacted tonight, keep going. I hope you'll join up for the cost of one beer a month at realleecamp.substack.com or patreon.com/leecamp. I can't do it without you. Until next time, the revolution will have laughter. Keep fighting.